What's up, y'all? In this episode, I sat down with Nick Cisko, Customer Experience Lead at PandaDoc. This was a follow-up to Nick's Secret Shopper experiment that I first introduced a few episodes back on an episode titled Engaging and Winning Over Free Trial Users. If you haven't listened to that yet, be sure to go back so you can get the full context of what the heck we're talking about. Nick is a really smart and detailed guy whose job title is not something that you see at every company, but it's critical if business wants to really understand and fix areas of customer friction. Stick around for the end of the episode when Nick and I play a fun game to see where he stands on some of the hottest topics in CX. All right, Nick, let's dive into it. I'm just going to go right into it, man. Welcome to the show.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here.
You worked at Apple and Tesla, and then over the last few years, you jumped into B2B SaaS.
Mhm.
And before we get into the show, I found footage of you from back in your days of working at the Genius Bar, helping customers on the front line. Let's take a look at that real quick and we can talk about it, okay?
Oh, no.
Julia? Hey, how are you? I'm Toby. Yeah, I kind of am like God. Bet you're worried I'm gonna find your folder of nudes, huh? I was just joking. It would probably send me into cardiac arrest anyway. Your hard drive is absolute horseshit. Hey, Kevin, you got that 5-4 lightning bolt cable laying around? Take your time. Your keyboard is rather sticky. Just out of curiosity, have you ever wiped it down with maybe a paper towel? I'm gonna show you how to wipe down your screen, because this is really out of hand, actually. Alright, if you could just enter your iCloud password for me. You don't know it? You don't know it? Sorry. It's okay. We can recover that password. Just enter your email that the iCloud account is registered with. You don't know the email. No one knows their iCloud password. Sorry. I'm gonna have to break into your computer. All right. Julia, hey, how are you?
So Nick, you look a bit different here in this TikTok video.
Yeah, younger days.
I think the facial hair is pretty on point for this one. For those that are just listening, this is a TikTok that I found of somebody impersonating a Genius Bar employee. And what do you think? Is that reminiscent of the early days for you?
I have PTSD. It's highly accurate. No, it was fun working at the Genius Bar, but you're dealing with people's personal attachment to things that if it's broken, chaos just happens. So it was fun. I learned a lot, but definitely kind of spot on.
I feel like it was between that TikTok video or me playing the clip from South Park where they had to go to the Genius Bar. And I don't know if you've seen that.
No, I don't watch a lot of TV.
It was the human centipede episode.
I think I've seen that.
Really disgusting.
Yeah, no, this is probably the better thing to play for the podcast.
All jokes aside, let's talk about how and why you have a job here at PandaDoc.
Okay.
Because a lot of businesses that have, under 1,000 employees, 5,000 employees, whatever you want to say, they don't have a dedicated customer experience team really whatsoever. If they do, it's really rare, which is awesome, and we want to hear about it. They have customer success, customer happiness, whatever you want to call it. They're kind of in charge of churn, making sure that they resolve, ticket requests and customer issues, but they're often just putting out fires after the fact, kind of like we talked about as we're getting ready for the show. So CX is not customer success.
It's not.
What's the difference between what you do here and what most organizations are trying to do?
Yeah, so I think the difference between what someone in customer success is focusing on is retention and growing the customer, and that's immediately from post sales. So the moment someone becomes a customer, our job is to make sure we are resetting the expectations, we're aligning the expectations, and we're trying to set the customer up for success, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
The sooner we do that, the longer they stay, right? Where for CX, you're looking bigger. You're looking beyond just that one customer. You're looking at what can I do to replicate this across the whole entire board? For every single customer who engages with us, how can we make sure it's frictionless? How can we make sure that every customer gets the adoption they need that leads to expansion, that leads to becoming an advocate of PandaDoc, essentially, right?
Yeah.
So that is kind of where I would come into play and look at the full view. What happens before they even sign with us?
Yeah.
What's that experience like? Is it easy?
That customer buyer journey.
Yeah,
Whatever
exactly.
you want to call it. So one of the things that we had talked about was that a lot of companies that are in scale up mode have some sort of like customer journey. And I know that when you came on board, there was one in place that somebody, God bless them, had put together that was pretty detailed and had like 9 steps. But when you and I were talking, you simplified it. Do you mind walking us through what your version of like the PandaDoc customer journey looks like now?
Yeah, I think that the PandaDoc customer journey is still somewhat true.
Mm-hmm.
I've just bucketed everything that is outside of those like big steps or big stages into those stages. So if you think about like the discovery to conversion and then adoption, well, then it's expansion, advocacy, retention, churn, right? But if you think about those last 3 steps, they kind of like live under the adoption, because if we don't successfully allow our customers to adopt our platform, well, then we set them up for failure, which leads to churn.
Yeah.
If we do a good job, well, then it gives the opportunity to stay and expand. So that's kind of like the way I look at it, is how can we make it simple without adding more noise for us to kind of be distracted on, oh, but we have to break it down here. No, we have to do really good right here.
Yeah.
This is where we make it or break it. And we can't blame the customer. We failed if we do it wrong, right? So that's kind of just like the view I have on it, is how can we make sure it's simple? The other teams don't really need to know about the other noise. They just need to know, let's do good right here.
Yeah.
This is where we need to focus.
So for those that did listen to the episode about the customer secret shopper experience, and those that didn't, would you mind telling us what was the most awful thing that you experienced? Without, obviously we don't want to shame anyone. Everybody here is trying at this company. Everybody, for them, like, right, like everybody's working, everybody's giving it a shot. When you were signing up for PandaDoc as a stealth buyer, what was the thing that you were just like, oh my God? And that was just like, we've got to fix this specific thing.
Yeah, so the way I kind of set things up, there's no like handbook on how to do this.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like you're leaning on Undercover Boss kind of, and all the episodes I watched then. But the biggest thing that I did was I created a fake company.
Yep.
I created a background story of who I am. I didn't change my name. I was Nick Cisko at Secret Shopper was my company name. I made it super easy to have a conversation with and about, because I didn't want to get caught in a corner and have to make up something on the fly. But I also didn't change my name because I want to see, okay, the moment I engage with our product through trial and an SDR picks me up, what does that process look like?
Yeah.
Like, do they look me up on LinkedIn?
Yeah.
Do they try to find my website? Do they try to figure out who are the other people that I need to ask questions about? Like, who's the decision maker? Is it you? Like, is it your boss? I was a fake CEO at the time, but I did that on purpose. And I wanted to see how long it would take until I got caught. I remember I was telling Nate Torvik, I was like, I hope I get caught today. And he's like, you haven't got caught yet? I'm like, no. It's like 5 days in. I should have been like disqualified as a lead immediately going into Salesforce. And I got caught on my demo. Like, I went through the whole SDR thing. I got scheduled for my demo, like I think 2 days later. And 8 minutes into my call, shout out to Brian Greenfader. He's just like, can I ask you a question? I'm like, sure. He's like, are you Nick Cisko at PandaDoc? I'm like, yeah, you caught me. So it was surprising to see how long it took for me to get caught, because I made it very easy to get caught. And again, I think that it's not necessarily something that we did wrong. I just think that process was never built into our processes.
To disqualify somebody that's just not a good fit?
No, just to go look deeper, not just look at what the information I'm giving, right? So I think what we did was we looked at what I filled out, what I said. And I was like, I have money. I want to buy you.
Yeah.
Right?
Which most businesses, with that logic, would be like, I want your money.
Exactly.
I want your business.
Yeah.
So where did we kind of get things wrong in your mind in the process?
We didn't dive deeper into who I was before you started talking to me. So the first thing I would have done is, let me go research this person. Like, is this a real person? Yeah. Nowadays, we get so much, inbound stuff that could be, let me build a blog for you. Would you like me to like be on your website? And we're like, no, those are immediately disqualified leads, right? We just don't deal with them.
Yeah.
We put them to the side. I created a fake background company,
Yeah.
but I left one big like question mark puzzle of like, I'm Nick Cisko at PandaDoc. I didn't change any of that. I didn't change my LinkedIn. I just left it. If you catch me, I'm leaving you the biggest cookie crumb in the world.
So the diving deeper, is that something that you want to see done manually by by each individual SDR that's handling that lead, or is that something that we would want to automate through some tool that's going to like enrich the data and find out that you actually work at PandaDoc?
Yeah, I think that part of just like the SDR process from my experience is you own that lead. It's your decision to make sure you're setting up the teams for success.
Yeah.
And that handoff from SDR to AE is, let me give that AE everything about this customer or potential customer,
Yeah.
right? So I think part of the process is, before I engage, let me spend 5 minutes researching the customer or the prospect, right? Let me look them up on LinkedIn. Let me look at their website. Let me get some familiarity out of them before I start asking questions, because I may be able to get some answers and I can ask different questions.
Yeah.
So what you're doing is you're just building, you're like documenting everything you possibly can to go say, hey, Travis, this is who Nick is. This is what he does. This is what his pain points are. Give him a demo that's tailored to that. Right. I think that's something that we're trying to do, and that's where we're going to be focusing on going into like this, like end of this quarter, Q2. But yeah, I think that's just like the biggest pain point we have from making things frictionless.
Yeah. It sounds like, too, for those that are listening, they're like, oh, well, I thought that a secret shopper would maybe be focusing on like, you know, how quickly somebody responds to a ticket. In this instance, you're on the marketing team, specifically on the engagement marketing team. And so you're focused much more so on like the very beginning of the customer journey at this point, right? Like when somebody's just first raising their hand with interest.
Yeah, I think that the biggest question was, at least for me, when I was going through like the whole interview process, they asked me like the hypothetical of what would you do? I was like, well, I want to be a customer. I want to understand how easy or how hard it is to buy PandaDoc.
Yeah.
And I always use this. You probably hear it all the time. If it's harder to buy PandaDoc and it's easier to buy a Tesla, that's a problem, right? It should be stressful to buy a car, but it should be easy to buy a solution that's going to help solve your problems and grow your business.
When it comes to what you're working on today, right? So if the first part of your role was like, you know, let's define who the customer is, and then let's explore, you know, and experience things as a customer, and then mapping out the journey. Those are the first kind of few steps. What comes after for a CX lead in your role?
Yeah, so the first thing that the executive team asked me was, where would you start?
Yeah.
Because when you think CX, it's just so like you can open up every single door and every single stage, but at that point you're boiling the ocean because you can't dedicate your entire focus. And I am one person right now, so I have to kind of focus on like the bigger things I can make impact on that will allow me to kind of go down the stages. I said the trial experience. You know, I said, I think that out of all the things I went through, I just felt like I had way more questions than I needed.
Yeah.
Through that discovery stage that would probably allow us to shorten our sales cycle if I was able to answer all those questions. Because now when I get on a call, it's like, hey, this is what I know. This is what I've done. Reassure me that I'm correct. And if I'm correct, then let's sign, right?
I totally thought you were going to say, when I asked you like, oh, what was the worst part about, you know, that you're like, this is the most egregious point of friction. I thought you were going to say like the number of emails you got from us.
That was the second thing.
Okay.
Yeah. I think the second thing was just, there's a lot of emails that were coming from different directions.
Yeah.
So we had like marketing sending trial emails that weren't really trial emails. They're just like emails. I was like, okay. And then at the same time, I'm getting sales emails that are kind of like either overlapping or conflicting with what I'm getting from marketing. And I'm like, whoa. And it's happening like at the same time. So there's like days where I would get like 4 emails and I'm like, I don't want to read them because it just seems like it's just like a whole bunch of stuff coming to me.
Yeah.
And there was like nothing relevant to me. I think the one that stood out to me the most was, when I had signed up for my trial, I said that I wasn't sure about what CRM I wanted to use. I'm shopping around, right? And I got a whole bunch of emails on CRM, but things that like were not relevant to anything I was looking for. It was like, don't forget to integrate your Salesforce. I'm like, I don't have Salesforce. Trash.
Yeah. So since then, and since having had some time to work with different departments, have you guys cleaned that up a bit? Have you worked on ways so that you're not getting bombarded by 3 different departments at PandaDoc?
Yeah, so in Q4 of last year, we focused on creating a new trial experience.
Mhm.
And part of that means that there are 2 teams that kind of interact, marketing and sales.
Mhm.
And so what we decided was marketing will own that lead until we qualify them. And then once they're qualified, they get handed off to sales. But during that time, we are speaking to the activity or lack thereof that that lead is doing in the trial.
Yeah.
So we are saying, when you sign up for the trial, go send your first document, go create a template, go do this.
Yeah.
The emails are speaking to that. Go do this. This is why. Here are resources. If you don't do this, we're not going to move you on to the next cadence because that doesn't make sense.
Mhm.
We're going to move you on to a new cadence that will still touch on the first cadence, but tell you that once you do this, we're actually going to tell you to do this. So we're kind of giving you like a glimpse into like the journey and what to expect. And the same thing happens with sales. Like the sales cadence isn't an opposite type of cadence. It's kind of picking up from where that person left off. So if they convert on day 3 to, we'll just use like a PQL, like product qualified lead,
Mhm.
they've done the activity. Well, then we're not going to change what we're saying. We're just going to pick up from where we left off from a marketing standpoint, and sales now owns it. The only thing we're changing is just we're adding, instead of go to support or go to our resources, schedule a call with our sales team.
Yeah.
Like, let's talk to an expert. So that's what we've changed.
And then what about projects that you're working on now and looking forward? Like, is there anything that you've done since then to meld maybe product into this a bit more?
Yeah, so the biggest thing that I'm working on now is, so we've done all this stuff in the front end in the trial.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest question I have is, what is sales doing about it? Right? What does our processes look like in terms of, is it frictionless? Like the moment we have that handoff to sales, are we doing a good job in sales to not drop the ball?
Yeah.
And it's all about just owning the ball in the court, right? Like we want to own it as much as possible, own the narrative, and own the experience. So right now I'm documenting all of our processes, building out journey maps for all of our processes, and then really diving deep into each process. You know, I think yesterday I was working on the inbound process and documenting that. And there's like 5 journeys that someone can go through just in inbound.
Wow.
So it's like, okay, within each of those journeys, they're all different. They're all routed different ways. Where are the gaps? Where does it take too long for us to get in front of the customer? Or is a customer waiting or the prospect waiting too long? I keep saying customer. But is a prospect waiting too long for us to reach out to them? So that's kind of like what I'm working on now, is just building that view, like the bird's eye view, and going, okay, sales, like these are our processes. These are where our pain points are at. Where do we want to start? Like, what do we want to do about it, essentially?
And I think you told me that you were experimenting with one SDR on the power and the effectiveness of him being able to see product signals from his end as a salesperson. Can you extrapolate and explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, so the other thing that we've done from our emails through trial is we've given the ability for our SDR team to see what's happening once they are in sales hands. That way we can strategically talk to the activity and go like, hey, Travis, I saw you sent your first document. I'd love to hear about it.
Dude, that's so powerful.
Yeah, right? Like the conversation, again, when you think about us owning the ball in the court, it's we want to come to you and say, like, what's your experience like? Like, let's talk about it, because it changes the conversation now.
And the fact that it's coming from an actual salesperson.
Yeah.
So like I've used tools before where like they had a product signal and I got a marketing automated message. It wasn't as impactful. I probably didn't respond to it. I was like, oh, they tracked that I did that thing inside their tool.
Yeah,
Cool.
This is an entirely like manual process. So every single morning, the SDRs would be looking at their book of leads and they're going, let's take a look at what Travis did today or yesterday. Okay, Travis sent 10 documents. I need to talk to this guy right away. Let me send an email that's separate from that sales can and say, hey, I've noticed you've done these things. Would you like to talk to an expert?
Dude, that is such a freaking cool way to meld like product-led growth with sales-assisted growth, where you're taking these product signals and empowering like SDRs to say like, you want to close deals? Find the folks and the patterns of which deals are closing when people take certain actions in the product. If they're more likely to be closing after they've sent a document, then start flagging every single one of your leads that's sent a document inside of PandaDoc. And you might start to see your booking rate go through the moon.
Yeah, and the biggest thing too, and sales probably won't like that I'm saying this, but not every lead that does these things are ready to buy.
True.
And I think it's our job as an organization to help nurture that. Make sure that we are trying to show them the value of our product, how it'll help grow their business, because I truly think that our product can do that. Anytime you think of like a solution out there, it's not like it's just going to solve this one problem. It's like it's going to solve multiple problems that's going to allow you to continue to grow, right? And that's what I really strongly believe about a product. It's not just one-time solution. It's a solution that will allow your organization to continue growing, saving you time, things like that, right? So I think as long as we are nurturing that, and not trying to force someone into a corner and say like, buy us. Hey, we want to make sure that you are ready to buy, but let's kind of speed it up as quickly as possible without forcing it. But let me make sure like you are comfortable.
I think a talented salesperson or SDR would come into that situation for more of like a consultative approach.
Exactly.
It'd be like, hey, so-and-so, I saw you sent a document. How was that experience for you? Was it shittier than you thought it would be? Was it better than you thought it'd be? Where did you get stuck? How can I help you just learn the tool better?
Yeah, I think it just creates this bridge between the organization and the prospect.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's like this trust now.
Yeah.
And that's like the most important thing. Like a lot of times in a buyer's journey, one like wrong thing can like cause the prospect to be like, nope, not signing here. That sucked, right? So it's how can we eliminate that and make sure that the buyer's journey is frictionless? It shows that we care, right? I think when that's something we can relate to. If you think about, again, the buyer's journey like Apple or Tesla, it's very, very frictionless. It's very easy. And if you have concerns, guess what? They're answering it for you before you even have to talk to anybody.
Yeah.
For us, we have that level of you can sign without talking to somebody, but you can also talk to an expert, right? That expert should be that consultative person that says, I'm here for you.
Yeah.
And most people will be like, you are? Because it is really stressful to buy, to invest into a product like ours.
Yeah.
Or any like B2B software or any software in general. It's super stressful. Like I remember when I was in school, I was studying music, buying, Pro Tools was just like, oh my God, it's so much money. It's a lot. You're investing and hoping that you're going to continue using it. And, my previous company, when I was leading a CS team, my biggest fear was always, if I'm going to spend this money, is my team going to use it?
Yeah. That's every boss's fear.
Exactly.
Like every manager, director is like, they're asking for a tool, but if they don't use it, that's a lot of money that we're going to have to talk about.
And that's where we come into play as an organization to help make sure we answer those questions. And we break down that doubt, right? You always want to have people make a confident, comfortable decision. I'm ready to sign. I'm happy. Where's the dotted line? Boom, right? If there's doubt, they're going to be like, I got more questions. Well, we didn't answer those questions. We got to change that. We have to answer as many questions as possible and turn it into a conversation.
So if someone is listening to this and is like, oh shit, my team needs a Nick Cisko, they need this role, or I want to create this role for myself. Like I'm on the customer success team, but I see a need for this. How do they go about doing it? And like, what do you suggest for them to try and create this customer experience manager, lead role, whatever you want to call it, at their own company?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge is that every team has like their own objectives. And for someone in CX, you can't be tied to those objectives. You're tied to the customer. But at the end of the day, you are tied to those objectives in some sort of way, right? You have to be unbiased to everything. You have to be able to call things out and go, that sucks. We should change that. It doesn't make sense. Here's why. But I think if anyone's listening and they're like, okay, well, where do I start?
Yeah.
The biggest question is document your processes. Build not just a document with a bunch of words, but build it so someone can look at it and go, huh, there are 20 steps in the process. Why? right? You want to make sure the other person is start questioning their own processes. And then you go, well, what I've done is I've done deeper. And out of the 20 steps, this part right here, it just takes too long.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we just get rid of it or replace with something that will help it be more efficient and automated, right? I think that's like the biggest thing is you have to be that person who helps the other teams visualize and see what's actually happening because everything's so fast paced.
Yeah.
And no one has time to stop and go, oh, what's that?
Yeah.
Right? So I think that's like the biggest thing. And then you also have to be really good at trying to connect the dots around all the different teams that might be working on similar projects that all intersect in some way and go, why don't we just work together?
Yeah. And you sit on the marketing team, but you could easily sit on sales. You could easily sit on CS. But I think it fits for like for your focus right now because you're focusing on the first part of the customer journey, the very beginning. And in most companies, marketing is the one that handles the very, very first interaction.
Yeah, I think another reason why I'm on the marketing team too is so I'm not attached to sales or I'm not attached to product because once I am, I become biased.
Yeah, you have your own objective there.
Right? Like where in marketing, I'm kind of just feeding what I'm seeing to the marketing team to go, this is what's happening here.
I'm sure you must be really popular with a lot of people, especially when you first started ruffling some feathers.
Nate, shout out Nate Torvik. I met with him like every single day for 3 months to the point where he's just like, I don't want to see your face anymore. But I honestly love working with Nate and his team. His team is amazing.
Yeah.
But what I did was I helped feed the information without him having to be there, right? It's like, hey, I met with product. This is what we're doing. These are the type of emails we need to kind of start thinking about making, right? So I was able to kind of feed that information from the other teams back to the relevant team that affects that beginning stage, right? Which is marketing. So I'm kind of unique because there isn't like a CX department yet. It's just me.
Yeah.
So I kind of I'm like the black sheep in the marketing team.
You are.
I'm kind of like, they're like, you guys have to make emails and content, but I'm here like secret shopper.
And we love you nonetheless. Let's switch gears here and let's wrap up the episode by playing a fun game. It's called Are You In or Are You Out? I'm going to get a whiteboard for you.
Okay. I'm nervous.
Here's your whiteboard and marker.
Okay.
And then go ahead and write the numbers 1 through 5.
1 through 5.
Yes, sir.
Just like straight down?
Straight down. And then we're going to go one at a time. I'm going to make a statement, and then you can tell me, are you in on it or
Okay.
are you out?
Okay.
All right, statement number 1. A higher NPS and CSAT score are the best indicators for determining successful CX. Are you in or out on that? All right, tell me what you wrote.
Out.
Let me see it. Show it to the camera. Show it to the camera, baby. All right, you're out. Why are you out on that? I'll read it one more time. A higher NPS and CSAT score are the best indicators for determining successful CX.
I think it just tells part of the story. That you have to dive deeper into more. I think NPS is something that pops up.
Yeah.
And you can just click on it and type whatever you want to type, but it's not telling you the actual problem or like why someone's happy.
Yeah.
CSAT is dedicated to their experience they have with like support and how quickly we're able to resolve their problem. But just because we're able to resolve their problem doesn't mean they're happy, right? So you have to kind of think about what's happening with CS, what's happening with the product, what's happening with support, what's happening with marketing, what's happening with all these different things that communicate back to the customer.
Yeah.
And what are they like? The way I think of it is like, what are they thinking? What are they feeling? What are they doing? What are they saying? All those different things, right?
Yeah.
And I think that while NPS and CSAT are great, it's just part of the story, not the full story.
And then I did a little research and I saw that Gainsight has a great article and like a chart on one of their websites that differentiates between leading indicators and lagging indicators. Here, I'll pull it up so you can see what the heck I'm
I
actually,
think I've seen this.
what I'm talking about here. And so for those that are just listening, you don't have to see the chart. I'm just showing it to Nick here so he can take a look at it. Wait, there's one more. Here we go. So, for example, leading indicators for growth could be like product adoption, which we've been talking about like basically this whole time. Review website scores, so like your G2 scores, those types of things. Community engagement growth, that's what I focus on. Survey responses, lagging, and then the differentiating is lagging indicators, NPS scores, customer outcomes, gross net retention, success stories, churn rates with reasons, like you mentioned.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I just wanted to point this out for folks that are like, well, what else besides CSAT and NPS could you be looking at? A shit ton of stuff.
Yeah.
It seems overwhelming. And like, I think about your role sometimes and I get this knot of anxiety in my chest. I'm like, you have so much to look at, dude. And like Jesus.
But it's what allows us to do better,
True.
right? And I think that, like, it's not, again, we're not doing anything wrong. Everything's just like, I always say, it's like constructive feedback.
Yeah.
We don't know what we don't know, so we can't, if we don't know what to improve on. But if we're able to kind of get the full picture,
Yeah,
and work with our teams as one, guess what? We're PandaDoc, not PandaDocs with like multiple S's at the back of it, which is what you never want to experience when you go through any like company.
True.
Like if you walked into Apple and then they have like 5 different sections, you're like, apples? Like, no, I'm just here for the apple.
Just one, just
the
singular.
one. Yeah, like give me the Apple phone, not the Apple's phone.
I like that. All right, statement number 2. In CX, improving a process is the hardest area to enact change. Are you in or are you out? In CX, improving a process is the hardest area.
I'm out.
To enact change. Out.
Yeah.
A contrarian. Let's hear it.
So I'll show the camera. I kind of wrote out. I think the biggest thing I think of is not necessarily the process itself, it's adoption of the process. I'm really keen on thinking of, if I do this, if like we roll this process out, is it going to make this person's job harder? Or are they just going to do something opposite of what the process actually is, right? So I always want to think about, like, again, I always think big picture and like the small details of, okay, we're talking about changing a process, let's say like for the SDRs.
Yep.
Right? This is the view that we have. Whoops. This is the view that we have for the journey. These are all the stages that someone will go through. These are the processes that we have to do.
Yep.
If we're adding things, are they going to do them? If we're taking away things that make it more efficient, is that going to speed up the process? Like, what does a day in the life look like if we do these changes?
Yeah.
So I don't think it's the process itself that's hard. It's, are we actually going to stick to it? Or are we going to change it in 2 weeks?
I think you hit the nail on the head. When I was, again, I do a little research on some of these statements just so I don't sound like such an idiot. But one of them was like, when a company is trying to improve CX, they'll look at technology, training, and content improvements for better CX design and culture. And you nailed it. Training. Like, are people going to, if I train them on this, is it easy to train them? Will they easily adopt it? Will they easily do it? So God bless you, Nick Cisko. I'm sure all the salespeople are like, hey, he actually does think about us. All right, statement number 3. Controversial one here.
Okay.
Sales is usually the guiltiest culprit for creating terrible CX at a company. Are you in or are you out?
Do I have to answer?
You do.
Can I write I'm torn?
You can just answer whatever you want.
I'm going to put torn. I wrote torn.
Tell me why you're torn.
Sales, their job is to sell. And they're going to do whatever they have to do to sell.
Yeah.
Right? That's just like straight to it. I think that there's other factors that most companies don't look at, and they try to blame another department. And they go, it's sales' fault.
Yeah.
I used to do it,
Yeah.
right? When I led CS, I was like, sales is throwing me crappy, leads.
Customers that are pissed off.
Yeah, and now my team is mad because they have to figure out how to reset expectations. And it's not always sales' fault.
It's not. I think it starts, like, I've talked about this with you. I've talked about it with other guests. It's the organization's culture. Are they setting up sales to only be focused on hitting a number?
Yeah.
Are they setting quotas that are so goddamn unattainable that these sales reps are, just drowning in being able to hit that? And so they're getting desperate. And so they're just, selling to customers that should not buy. And
that
so
one right there.
yeah. And so I think I had Megan Bowen from Refine Labs talk about, like, setting expectations from the sales. Yeah, I may close fewer deals, but I'm not going to have, this isn't going to be churn. And yeah, if you set the culture within the sales organization of like, hey, like, quota's not everything, guys. There's more to life than hitting that quota. And setting up compensation structures that are fair and balanced,
Yeah.
right? So that people aren't like, well, I need to get paid. I have a family to feed, that kind of shit. I don't give a
Totally.
shit about CS and like,
Yeah. I think that the biggest part that a lot of, sales organizations struggle with is they're trying to get people in.
Yeah.
But they don't really care what happens after.
Yeah.
It sucks to say that, but it's true.
Yeah.
And I think that if we focus, again, going back to what we talked about earlier, that trust building in the early stages, well, we should be looking at is every customer that we're selling to staying long term? Because that's where the money comes from, not from the initial sell. It costs money to buy somebody,
Absolutely.
right? So if we spend all that money trying to get someone to purchase us, well, do we lose it in 6 months and a year? That sucks, right?
Yeah.
Why don't we just try to, I always, refer to like the desired outcome. Why don't we just focus on trying to solve that person's problem, that lead's problem, get them in, adopt them the way they need to be adopted into our platform, right? Get them sticky enough to start looking at expansion opportunities, because that leads all down to retention. Like if we do a really good job selling, we do a really good job setting them up for success.
Yeah.
Guess what? They stay because they don't see any reason why they need to leave. But if we have some sort of, disruption that makes it harder at any point, and we don't set them up for success, and 6 months down the road, they're like, what am I using this for again? They're going to leave. So we spent all that time for what?
Yeah.
To hit a number in a month and go, whoa, we hit it. Okay, cool. They left.
Yeah. But sales is like, I don't care, bro.
I got paid already.
That's CS's problem.
So that's why I said I'm torn.
Fair enough. All right. Statement number 4. Are you in or out on this one? Buying tools like Gainsight, Elida, Acoustic, Qualtrics is the best route for most organizations to fine-tune their CX.
I'm out.
Tell me why.
I think you got to know like your journey. You got to know what's up before you can invest into a product, because you might be investing into a product that can solve some problems, but if you don't know what those problems are, then you're not going to be using that product to its full advantage.
Yeah.
And I think that those companies, they do a good job on trying to sell you. I've spoken to a couple here just to kind of like learn about what kind of tools are out there that we can look at in the future.
Yeah.
But it's also good to talk to other companies that focus on CX and kind of just hear it from their perspective. And it's always funny when I talk to them, they go, so what have you done? I was like, I was a secret shopper. They're like, what? Can we hire you? And I'm like, no. So I think it's like understanding your journey, understanding the types of problems you're trying to solve, understanding what you can solve that doesn't need, software.
Yeah.
And then looking at, okay, well, now that we understand what's happening, where can we be more efficient, and where can we maybe add something that's a little more automated with some software?
Yeah.
That can read us back some stuff. So I think that a lot of companies are like, let me go throw some money at software that will help solve problems. But again, it comes down to that adoption. But then you don't use it.
Yeah.
And you're like, I just spent $120,000 on a software that I've used once.
Yeah. Or you could have hired a CX lead,
or that,
for probably less than that.
Probably. Yeah.
And I think, yeah. So for those that are listening, like those tools are great. I was looking at like Qualtrics website, and one of their biggest customers is JetBlue, and they talk about all the time, like, yeah, well, JetBlue has 3 million passengers a year. Okay, they have like thousands of employees they're
10 times bigger than us.
Exactly. So for organizations like that, yeah, they want to fine tune their CX. Yeah, they probably have like 20 Nick Ciskos working on it, so they need Qualtrics on a day-to-day basis to run some big ass campaigns that are company wide. So
yep,
that makes sense. Statement number 5, and then we'll wrap it up. Obtaining product and customer data is super easy to get from other teams.
Out.
I bring this up with a smirk because I've heard you talk about like you'd think it'd be easier to do this. Talk to us, not necessarily, again, not trying to shit on anybody. Like everybody works really hard.
Yeah.
But what are the ways that you've done this successfully and like navigated, like where you're like, all right, I got the data?
At PandaDoc?
Yeah, and at other companies, whatever you want to say.
I think it's just that partnership, right? Like I think that the way I try to step into like any project is, and I said this earlier, like I'm not tied to any of those goals, but I tie myself to those goals. And I make sure that the person I'm talking to is seeing that this is a true partnership. Like, hey, I'm actually here to help you.
Yeah.
Like, and I tell everybody that. Like, I met with the SDR team yesterday, and I told them, I was like, I'm here for 2 quarters to help you guys. Like, I want to make sure that you're able to see what's happening with your teams, so you know what to improve on.
Yeah. Now give me that data.
Let's get the data, right? So I think it's just more of like showing that there is some sort of urgency, and not like trying to put someone in a corner and like be like, I really need that data. Yeah. It's just like, this is why. Yeah. This is how many people are relying on it, and I'm that person who has to deliver it. But at the end of the day, it comes back to you if you don't give it to me.
Yeah.
Because I say I can go back to the team I was waiting and go, this person's holding me up.
Yeah.
you're the delay in the process. It's taken 2 weeks for us
Yeah.
to see this, and it shouldn't be that way.
And it's not that you're coming in trying to sniff out for like where they've done their job wrong.
Yeah,
And I think
it's just
that's the
like
misconception sometimes is like, who the fuck's this guy bothering me? Like, he's gonna come point fingers at shit that I'm doing.
yeah. I think the biggest change that you know, we're probably seeing is that there is that partnership that we have to start considering across all the different teams. It's like,
Nice.
oh, I'm working on this, but actually these teams need it too. I just never thought about them because I've been so focused on my goals.
Yeah.
It's like, well, your goals are my goals too. Let's do it together.
Yeah.
Like the pressure's not all on you. And if I could build the data, I would, but I don't have access to that. I'm not like, I'm not the person who builds the data. I'm the person who looks at it and go, oh crap. Now I need to go tell Andre.
All right, Nick, thanks so much for coming on the show. If you want to connect with Nick, you can find him on LinkedIn. It's Nicholas Cisko, Cisko. Shoot him a DM, ask him for some secret shopper advice. And thanks, man. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, it's been awesome. I loved it.
All right, y'all. We'll see you next time on the Customer Engagement Lab. Adios.
Thanks for listening to the Customer Engagement Lab, brought to you by PandaDoc. If you liked what you heard, please subscribe to our YouTube channel or connect with us on LinkedIn. We love to hear from you and what you think of the show.